Hi there. My name is Caroline Brodigan, and I'm here to talk to you about mastering the Appian DevOps Lifecycle. Now, I know as we're doing virtual Appian world, a lot of us are doing a lot more virtual meetings today. And sometimes, it can be a little frustrating to have asynchronous communication, especially when you're doing something that involves a lot of people and that's time sensitive, like a deployment or trying to get a release into your production environment. Now, the point of DevOps, which we're talking about today, is to make a lot of those interactions easier. And the business values that it focuses on are delivering value to users faster, improving user experience, reducing manual work, and lowering risks and failures. So DevOps is really a contraction of development and operations, and it's a set of practices, tools, and policies around fostering close collaboration between your development and your operations teams, with that goal of delivering value to your end users faster and more reliably. Now, sometimes we'll talk about a variation of that called DevSecOps, where your security team is another group that's brought into that culture of collaboration. And security is really talked about in both stages as you're developing applications and as you're operating them after the fact. And I wanted to spend a little bit of time in this intro talking about what DevSecOps looks like for a low-code platform like Appian. Now, the real big benefit with a low-code platform is that a lot of your security concerns are handled at the platform level. So with Appian low-code platform, you get things like our proprietary SAIL language, library upgrades, and security scans all handled for you in the base product platform. Now, on top of that, we stack other security considerations like operational security, which if you're an Appian Cloud customer is handled by the Appian Cloud team. And then finally, the part of the pyramid that you need to be more concerned about is application security. So this is your business-specific security around which groups within your organization have access to different information. And we'll see throughout this presentation how that security is woven into Appian as you're building and deploying. Now, throughout my presentation, I'm going to talk about the DevOps lifecycle through a series of demos of making a change in a development environment, pushing it up into your test environment, and then ultimately deploying it into production so that it's available to your end users. And we know that oftentimes before something goes into production and becomes generally available, we want someone to take a look at it. So within the demo, we'll also show how a business user can provide some input as in the form of an approval before you get into the production environment. Now, I'm going to kind of jump right in and kick off first with creating a new record type in Appian. So we'll walk through creating that record type and as part of our property insurance claims management application. Here I can enter my details, and then as soon as I hit create, I'm actually going to be prompted to set security for that record type. And Appian is going to give me some specific warnings about the types of roles that are important to include on this object. I can create groups right in line, so I get a quick forward flow, and I can set my caseworkers. And then as soon as my object is created, that security is set automatically. So that's that application security component that we were talking about. Now, once I've made my other changes that go along with this set of functionality that I want to deploy to my production site eventually, I'm ready to start my deployment packaging. So here I'm going to show you how to launch the Compare and Deploy wizard, which gives you a guided deployment experience. So within my application, I hit the Compare and Deploy button, and this is allowing me to choose a connected environment. So I'm comparing against my test environment. I can see how the objects inside my application differ from what's on test. And so this is giving me that smart insight early on to say which changes are meaningful to package to deploy. These connected environments have been available since 19.1 and are available to be configured in the administration console, which we'll look at a little bit later. Now, as you saw, Appian is automatically telling me the status of my objects from my dev environment to my test environment. So some are newly created, like that record we just looked at, and others are changed. So when an object is changed, I can actually launch a detailed diff, like I'm doing for this particular decision object. And that highlights the changes that have been made in between the last time it was deployed to the test environment. So I can review at this step and make sure that the changes that I'm deploying are the changes that I really want to make in order to enable this new functionality. Now we know that oftentimes your application changes don't just require object changes, they also involve other things like database scripts. So starting in 19.4, you're able, as part of this guided flow, to also package database scripts alongside your application changes. So here I can choose a data source on my target environment, my test environment, and then upload one or more database scripts and reorder them in order to tell Appian how to execute them when they go to be deployed to test. And most recently, coming up in 20.2, we're adding plugins into this guided flow experience. So besides database scripts, we know your application changes can also depend on new functionality and components that are available through Appian's plugins. So with our next release, you'll be able to also include plugins that have already been deployed onto your environment as part of your deployment package. So if you have a plugin already on development, you can choose to include it as you push over your changes to test. Make sure that you have the right plugin available and the right version. Now, once I've made all of those decisions about what are the right things to package inside, I can actually inspect that package against my test environment and make sure that there won't be any other failures or other kind of risks or guardrails that I'm missing. So when I hit next within this guided wizard still, Appian's automatically scanned my package and given me some warnings. So just like the security we saw during that record type creation, it'll let me know if any objects that I previously set up don't have appropriate security or are missing an important role. So here I can set a new administrator for these objects just to make sure that people can take care of them when they're in higher environments. In 20.2, we've also added a scan on your test coverage. So any expression rules that you've included along with your package, we'll check to make sure that you have test cases configured, and you can even run them in bulk right from there. Finally, you just saw me add a missing precedent. So this was an object that my package changes relied on in order to successfully deploy to a higher environment, and that wasn't currently part of my package. So I was able to select it, add it in, and inspect again just to make sure that everything is ready to go. Now finally, now that I have high confidence in the package that I've put together, I can do my quick deployment to test. So when I hit next, I can add a description describing the business change that I'm making, and then I can hit the simple deploy button. So here I get a quick summary of what I've deployed, as well as the ability to download that package of objects and the export log. But other than that, my changes are already on their way to test. Now, as I want to go into test and make sure that I can test all those changes and that they were deployed successfully, I can go to the deployments view that we released in 20.1. So here within Appian Designer, I have a new centrally located summary of all my deployments, both incoming and outgoing. So I can I can filter and also drill in for more information from here. So we're going to click on that link next and actually view those deployment details. So from this list, I can drill into that deployment. I can see that it was successful, and the history actually shows me all of the objects that it included, the database scripts, the plugins, and the inspection results, as well as my description. So this is really a great audit trail for all of the changes that have been happening in your environment. Okay, so from here, I would go and test out all my changes on the test environment, make sure they're behaving as expected, and then once I'm confident, I can go ahead and deploy to production. So we give you the option to deploy to another environment from a successful incoming deployment. And here you'll see a simplified wizard where we've already kind of preloaded all of your previously selected objects and other scripts and plugins. So it's really simple to just do a quick review and then go ahead and push it up to the next production environment. Now here, this is actually being made as a request. And we'll see in the next slide, now within production, I can again go to deployments, and I can see that now I have a deployment that's pending review. So remember, again, these details are all the same, but this is where we've configured production to require an approval before new deployments are applied. So as an appropriate reviewer in production, I'd be able to come in here, find pending review deployments, and make the appropriate decision based on the details. So in this case, I can review everything and I can choose to approve or reject. Here I'm going to add some comments to say I've talked with the business owner and they approved these changes to go into production. And then I'm going to go ahead and submit it. And what's happening now is those changes are being deployed to the environment right away. And you can see as we're waiting, it's in progress and then eventually goes to completed. Yep. So I get that real-time status update with the feedback that my deployment was successful. Now, I've shown you going from a development to a test to a production environment in order to get your changes to end users quickly and seamlessly. As we talked about, we highlighted some object security along the way. And in addition to that, we also have governance controls inside the admin console. So once you allow direct deployments, you can choose whether or not you're comfortable with having plugins and database changes included as options within that wizard. And you can also enable required reviews on the source environment if that is sensitive and necessary. While we're in the admin console, I wanted to highlight a couple of other things that are new exciting features related to the DevOps Lifecycle. The first, available in 20.1, is the new maintenance window. So this is a really great feature if you're smoke testing a recent deployment or doing some other maintenance activities that might otherwise disrupt your end users. So here you can simply type in a message and activate your maintenance window. And end users who are not system administrators will be logged out and prevented from logging back in until you disable the maintenance window. So this is a great way to easily communicate with your entire user base in a centralized fashion. Another thing available in the admin console is our integrated health check. So this was released in 19.4 and is easily set up in a single one-stop shop from the admin console. So here we want to get started and set up the health check. We have options to configure an automatic upload to our community site, as well as schedule it on a regular recurring basis. So we really recommend that everybody set up health check because it gives you great insights into your Appian applications. It gives both design and runtime warnings about potential risk areas. And if you run it every sprint or so, then you really get a good sense of your application and overall environment health. So once you've configured those results, you can always come back to the admin console and see the history within that page and easily link to any of the related reports. And since we've introduced this one-stop shop, we're happy to say that we've seen really great adoption numbers in terms of overall average monthly adoption growth. So thank you for everyone who's gone out and tried it out and given us feedback. And we hope you continue to use it and get value from it. So finally, just to kind of wrap this all up, we showed how to easily package changes, including database scripts and plugins, through a guided push-button deployment flow. We also highlighted how we're ensuring safety at every stage, from warning you when you create new objects about what security roles might be most relevant, to running security scans before you deploy to make sure that all of your objects have appropriately set groups. In addition, we showed application governance and auditing that ensure that no unintended changes make it into your production environment. Now, if you want more, we know several customers who have their own continuous integration tools and infrastructure, and it's possible to orchestrate your testing and deployments through version control and CI tools of your choice. You can check out the DevOps Quick Start Guide on Appian Community to see an example pipeline setup and get some ideas about how to have those tools integrated into Appian. We also have a great section within the Appian documentation on DevOps with Appian that goes over a lot of different resources about building, testing, deploying, and monitoring your applications. And finally, we really encourage you to get onto 20.1 and even start planning your upgrade to 20.2, which will be coming out on June 12th. If you're a prospect, this is a great time to sign up for a free trial and really get your hands on some of these low-code features that I've showed. And finally, you can also talk to us virtually. You can contact your account executive or customer success manager, or we'll also be answering questions at virtual booths during this presentation. Once again, thank you for your time. And I'm Caroline Brodigan, the product manager at Appian.